This is Daniel Poppy, host of How to Write Good. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Julianne Condia, host of Rewritten here on Public House Media. Thank you so much for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you are done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Rewritten, where we will talk about you having limitless potential and can rewrite your story at any time. No matter your background, your past, or current situation, you can have the type of life you crave. A new show comes out every single Monday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Rewritten. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Throughout history, the course of sports has been shaped by one thing: the fans.
From the moments you never dreamed of,
Saved the USA's life in this World Cup! Hall, the runner! Loose ball! It's good! Gonzaga! The slipper still fits!
To the moments that still give you nightmares.
Behind the bag! It gets through Buckner! Here comes Knight and the Mets win it! He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl! Brady has his fifth!
through the good and the bad, fans have helped change the games we watch and the players we love.
They may not be the most logical people.
You are a factory of sadness! I'll see you Sunday.
But they know their teams better than anybody.
They'll blow in the ninth.
You may not always see them, but you know where to find them.
After all, there's nothing quite like the view from the cheap seats.
Broadcasting is part of the Public House Media Network.
Grab a chair and enjoy all there is in
The cheap seats.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again in the cheap seats here on Public House Media. As always, we are presented by Squadcast.fm on this wonderful Monday, August 13th, 2018. Heimall and Jon Lauder here with you, as we are each and every week on this wonderful Monday. And in case you weren't aware, football is back.
Yeah,
but then again, so is Tiger Woods. We'll get into a lot of that coming up in just a little bit. Jake Brown, writer for WFAN in New York, as well as Sirius XM NFL producer. He's going to join us to recap some of Week 1 in the preseason. John, and you and I will discuss this later as we get into our actual poll question, which you can go to the Facebook page, Cheap Seats by Public House Media, and vote on that poll question. But it just, I can't get excited. I'm sorry. I don't care. I did not watch one single snap of preseason football. Did you?
No, I mean, I didn't either. The only stuff I saw was just some highlights here and there. I was interested to see how Sam Darnold looked. I was interested to see how, basically how the rookies looked and how my Packers looked, and that was about it. But no, I mean, it's really completely irrelevant to me.
Yeah,
in every way.
As a Giants fan, like I saw everybody freaking out, like, oh my God, Saquon Barkley, like his first run was 39 yards, but he finished with 5 rushes for 43 yards. So his next 4 runs totaled 4 yards. Like, yay, So we'll get into that a lot more in a little bit. I just can't do it. I just don't know why people get excited. I also don't know why people get excited about the combine, but that's me. So whatever. We'll get into that in a little bit with Jake Brown coming up. But John, over the weekend, the final major of the year, and It almost happened. Tiger Woods almost won a major. He finished 2 shots behind Brooks Koepka, finished second in the PGA Championship out there at Bellrive Country Club in St. Louis. And, oh, man, this thing was exciting. It was fun on that final round on Sunday.
Crazy to me that Brooks Koepka now has 3 majors and he's won the last 2. I mean,
yeah.
He really is coming into his own. But Woods was incredible. It was a great 4 days of golf. He struggled a little bit at the beginning. He was +3 after his first 2 holes or 3 holes, and then he was 17 under the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Played really, really well. It was super exciting. Looked like he might have a shot there. And look, I mean, it was a close, competitive, really fun tournament to watch. Adam Scott was right there at 13 under, Stuart Sink, John Rahm at 11 under. So there were a lot of players that were relatively close. I mean, you look at Thomas Peters, Francesco Molinari, Justin Thomas, who's the number one player in the world, Gary Woodland at 10 under. So it really was a tremendous tournament. And you thought just for a couple of seconds, the Woods might be able to pull it off, but Koepka did just enough there in the final round to get his second straight major.
John, think about this. Tiger Woods posted a 64 on Sunday, 6 under. That 64 is his lowest final round score in his 80th major. His total score of 266 is his lowest 72-hole total in a major. That's not this year. That's not since his last major in 2008. That's in his career. He posted the best Sunday he's ever had in a major yesterday. That's scary when you think about where Tiger Woods can potentially be as we move forward in this quote-unquote comeback.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we have to say he's back now, right? Now we have to say it.
You have to. For a guy who he didn't hit a single fairway in the front 9 yesterday, and he still went 4 under in the front 9. This is
he was
insane.
Incredible.
And for a guy at his age to do it, I mean, listen, is he going to go out and catch Jack? Absolutely not. He's not going to do it. But this is the best thing in the world you could have for golf. To Tiger to be in contention on Sunday, for people to be wondering, is it going to happen? And then for him to just fall short. That is the best thing to happen to golf, really, since Tiger Woods burst onto the scene 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, and you can just see it by the crowds that follow him. The crowds were crazy all weekend, and they were there for him. And, without Tiger, even though I believe the game's as healthy as it's been in a long time, he just makes such a huge difference in TV ratings and interest. He just makes such a huge, huge difference. And it was clear the whole weekend. He was dominant, and people were into it, bottom line.
Yep. You're in the cheap seats here on the Public House Media Network, presented by Squadcast.fn. Christian Heimall, Jon Lauder here with you. You can find us on Twitter. Follow John, JON_LAUDER. You can follow me at Chris Heimall, CHRISHEIMALL. Last week, John, we spent some time talking about Ohio State, Urban Meyer. No real news there, at least big updates. There, hopefully you'd expect to see something figured out this week. But it's interesting, John, that this has kind of flown under the radar for some in college football, and that is what has happened at the University of Maryland. DJ Durkin, their head coach, has been placed on administrative leave amid reports of a toxic culture within the football program. A lot of this stemming from the passing of Jordan McNair back in June, one of the players who apparently was part of that culture and got a lot of verbal abuse, a lot of bullying, and this was a guy who was showing severe symptoms of heat exhaustion before eventually dying on June 13th of a heat stroke.
Yeah, this is just disgusting in every way. And, Maryland is in a bad place now. They're just another one of these schools that's got a lot of explaining to do, and tremendous reporting by ESPN. As much as we give ESPN flack, they still do a really good job of reporting, especially in college sports. I feel like they've really been on top of a lot of stuff lately. But athletic director Damon Evans sent a letter to the university staff, boosters, and supporters this past weekend saying he's, quote, concerned by the allegations of unacceptable behavior by members of our football staff detailed in recent media reports. Duh. It's an embarrassment. And, to have, kids forcing them to eat until they throw up, smacking food out of their hands. It's really a disgusting environment. And, there's one thing to try to pump, students up and student athletes up and try to make them better on and off the field. But to do what's being alleged there is truly an embarrassment to college sports, period. And obviously things need to change, and they need to change quickly.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. I mean, this is all stemming again from, as you mentioned, an ESPN report. 2 current players, multiple people close to the program, and former players as well as staffers talked to ESPN about the culture under DJ Durkin, who took over in 2015. Part of that, as you mentioned, the unhealthy eating habits, the belittling, humiliation, and embarrassment of players is common. In one example, a player who coaches wanted to lose weight was forced to eat candy bars as he was forced to eat candy bars while also being made to watch teammates work out. Extreme verbal abuse, players were routinely the targets of obscenity-laced epithets. meant to mock their masculinity when they're unable to complete a workout or a weight lift. One player was belittled verbally after passing out during a drill. John, this isn't just, yelling at a kid because he didn't finish the task or he gave up. This is legitimately working these kids to the point where they physically cannot keep their heads above them anymore. It's not just a mental health issue. It's becoming physical health issues, as we saw with the passing of a 19-year-old back in June.
Correct. A 19-year-old died. Stop. That's it. I mean, full stop.
And the fact that we had to wait till August for the head coach to be placed on administrative leave, that is a systemic issue all the way up to the athletic director. The fact that this had to come out 2 months after the fact that you're going to do this, that's what makes it even scarier.
And they all have to be on paid administrative leave. Urban Meyer's on paid administrative leave. God forbid that these super wealthy coaches miss a paycheck. It's embarrassing.
It is. There's a lot of it, and I mean, obviously, not to be lost in the sight of all this is, of course, the loss of Jordan McNair and what his family is going through, and what his teammates are going through as well. So you can only hope the betterment at some point, John. And I know it's a utopian type desire, but at some point you got to put safety and you got to put the well-being of people over winning and over a paycheck. At some point it's got to happen, and it's unfortunate that we consistently see that not being the case, especially in collegiate athletics.
For sure, 100%.
You're in the cheap seats here on Public House Media. One other scandal that has, again, kind of flown under the radar. It's insane that these things have happened and yet haven't really been talked much about.
It's because there's too much stuff. College athletics is a disaster right now.
Between, and even the rule changes made to college basketball last week, which, I mean, you and I could spend 3 years talking about that stuff. But I thought it was interesting that North Carolina, again, who last week self-reported 13 players committing NCAA violations by selling shoes given to them as part of the school's apparel deal, has apparently contacted 3 other schools that it learned may have had players sell to the same retailer. So North Carolina, John, has reportedly reached out to Michigan, Marquette, and Cal, saying that they have found out through their own investigations that their players could be selling shoes or selling team apparel as well.
I don't care about this. I don't care if these kids are selling shoes, man. Let them sell the shoes. Who cares? If you're not going to pay them, let them sell the shoes.
I don't 100% disagree with that. I think where this becomes the issue is then when you get, because where it becomes the issue is the boosters. That's where it becomes the issue, because then you have these things happen where, a kid, Chaz Surratt, sells a shoe, and then a North Carolina, alum doesn't want to donate money because they're placed on a bowl ban, whether they're good enough to make the bowl or not. They get placed on a bowl ban. The booster doesn't want to donate money, and then you lose recruiting opportunities because you don't have that new locker room or whatever it is. That's where it's all a vicious circular cycle. So I may not have a problem with it, but I understand where the problem lies and where it becomes the biggest issue.
And to back that up, if a booster, really a booster is going to be, I don't know. The whole thing to me is just kind of ridiculous. I mean, at the end of the day, it's shoes. But you know what? It's the NCAA. You take a recruit out to dinner and pay, it's a violation. So, the whole thing is just such a train wreck. It really is.
A lot of big issues when it comes to all this stuff. So, college sports in general. I mean, and you never hear about these things in like baseball or softball or swimming or soccer or lacrosse. You only hear about it in the ones. It's listen, follow the money. Follow the money. That's the biggest thing. So, all right, enough bad stuff to talk about, or negative things. We got football to talk about. The NFL football as well, because it is here. Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, they're clearly going to be Hall of Famers now after one meaningless, non-important game. Where they threw the ball like 6 times. So clearly Hall of Famers. We're going to talk to Jake Brown when we come back, and then after that, John and I will get our reaction to it, as well as debate our poll question. It's all coming up in a little bit. You're listening to The Cheap Seats here on the Public House Media Network, presented by Squadcast.fm.
This is Nicole Kelly, host of Loud and Proud here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Loud and Proud, where we talk about issues facing the disability community. A new show comes out weekly. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Loud and Proud. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Tiana Vanderhei here, host of the Refined Redhead podcast on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast. Once you're done with this episode, you should definitely come check out my show, the Refined Redhead podcast, where we talk to real people about relevant information in hopes of inspiring you to chase after whatever dreams you've set out to accomplish, persevering through whatever obstacles are in your way. A new show comes out bi-weekly every Tuesday, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of the Refined Redhead podcast. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Back in the cheap seats here on the Public House Media Network, presented by Squadcast.fm. Chris Heimall and Jon Lauder here with you. As NFL preseason week 1 last week, week 2 set to begin here in just a couple of days. Big storylines, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and a couple of other rookies impress. Andrew Luck is back and I guess look good, but we'll find out a little bit more as we talk to Jake Brown here in just a little bit. Jake of WFAN as well as Sirius XM NFL, and he's going to join us here, and we'll ask him our poll question, which you can vote on, by the way, by going to the Cheap Seats by Public House Media on Facebook. And as we welcome in Jake Brown, writer for WFAN as well as producer of Sirius XM NFL. Jake, what is the more meaningless preseason, in the NFL or Major League Baseball?
I think the NFL, here's the thing, people want to draw assumptions after one game. They want to put Sam Darnold as a franchise quarterback after like 2 quarters of play, and I think we draw more overreactions from the NFL than we do spring training. Spring training, nobody cares about the stats. They're irrelevant. Justin Verlander could have a 30 ERA, and he's still going to be a Cy Young candidate. So I think we look much deeper into this NFL preseason. I think baseball, people already know that it's kind of just a warm-up, and it's just getting into that baseball mode, getting into baseball weather, whereas NFL, people year after year seem to overhype it. I think NFL is more important, but I think it's more overhyped. I think it's more important for those fringe roster guys and those 54th and 55th guys trying to be that 53rd guy. So I think the NFL preseason has more importance, but I think it's more overhyped than baseball is.
And so with that, who are you more impressed with out of the rookie quarterbacks that we saw? Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield seemingly performed well. Lamar Jackson and a couple of others had their debuts. Which of the rookie quarterbacks most impressed you in week 1?
I'm probably most impressed with Darnold. I think we expect Baker to be good. I don't think he's the first pick. I mean, we expect him to be great. Darnold's got to probably pass over Teddy and Josh McCown. The Jets, the smartest move to make would be to start Teddy to start the season and then transition to Darnold. I like McCown, but we know what he is, and I really don't think he should be a starter. And you kind of have to throw what you're paying him out the window because the salary cap's going to be $100 million. That's not a big deal how much you're paying him. You brought him in as an insurance and a veteran to teach these younger guys. But I really think Teddy right now is the best option if they want to win. If they don't care about winning and they want to just mature Darnold, I think he's the guy. And Jackson, I think it's going to be a little bit. People are throwing Joe Flacco out the window like he's nothing. This is a Super Bowl champion quarterback. He's going to start the season, and Jackson's going to be seen in some packages here and there. But Jackson might not be a starter at any point this season. Flacco's not done yet, and I still think he has a little bit left in the tank, and plus you're paying him a boatload. So I don't look at Jackson as really getting a chance this year, whereas Baker and Darnold, I believe 100%, we're going to see them at some point. And I think they're both in, Baker and Darnold are in similar points where they have to beat out more of a veteran guy to get that job. And they could have a heck of a preseason, but that doesn't really mean anything. They could still be that backup going into week 1.
With regards to Baker, how much does it help that the guys who were up there in the front office with the Browns were some of the ones who were in the decision rooms when Green Bay took Aaron Rodgers and let him sit behind Brett Favre? How much does that maybe impact Baker and possibly sitting behind a guy like Tyrod Taylor for a little bit?
Well, I think Tyrod Taylor, we can't overlook the fact that he does not turn the ball over, and people want to throw him out the window as they do Flacco, but Tyrod Taylor is a good player. He didn't have a ton of talent around him in Buffalo. I think now you give him Jarvis Landry, you give him, hopefully, if Josh Gordon does play, you give him Josh Gordon, and honestly, I don't see why they wouldn't sign Dez Bryant. It would obviously add to the value of Hard Knocks, which was awesome the first show, and that made me want to root for the Browns. Why wouldn't you add him at this point? Dez Bryant, Josh Gordon, and Jarvis Landry with Baker Mayfield. I mean, that's as back page, as much of a front page of the newspaper as you want right there. So many storylines and so much talent on just the offensive side of the football that I think the Browns will at least be somewhat irrelevant. So I don't see why they wouldn't do that. But, I really think Baker, he's going to get his chance this year. If it's not week one, it's not a big deal. He's clearly a franchise quarterback. And you do trust that front office. I love the pick of Baker. I was hoping he fell to the Jets. I'd rather have Baker Mayfield than Sam Darnold. I think he's more talented, but I think people just got to be patient, and they got to realize you pay Tyrod Taylor a boatload for this year. You might see him for half a year, maybe more. See what you have in Tyrod first. Baker's going to be here for another decade, so you're going to have plenty of Baker. If it means sitting for 8 weeks of Tyrod, so be it.
Speaking with Jake Brown, writer for WFAN in New York and Sirius XM NFL producer, here in the cheap seats on the Public House Media Network presented by Squadcast.fm. Jake, it's always interesting when a player leaves their team and then talks trash about that team. We saw it with Danny Amendola and then last week with Kelvin Benjamin. What did you make of the interaction that we saw between Benjamin and Cam Newton when the Bills and Panthers played?
Well, I think it was just foolish with Kelvin Benjamin. One, he had at least one great season under Cam Newton, so him saying that, he hurt his development and maybe he needed a better quarterback is ridiculous. Listen, I'm not the biggest Cam Newton fan at all. I think he's a baby. I think he's a clown. I think he's as unprofessional as it gets when we talk about a leader and a guy you want leading a team. I really think he hasn't matured one bit. But saying all that, he's still a great quarterback, and I think Kelvin Benjamin is just making all sorts of excuses. And a lot of guys like to do that. Guys with big egos will make excuses for themselves in the NFL, as Dez Bryant has done. So I really think that Cam Newton is a great quarterback. I don't like the other stuff about him. I think there are better quarterbacks, but Kelvin Benjamin's a clown for that, and he's a clown for not confronting him. Cam went up to him, and basically they said Kelvin just wanted no part of it. He should have manned up and said, you know what, I was wrong in saying that. He should have manned up and said it was a mistake. Kelvin Benjamin's a good receiver, and for him to blame a guy like Cam Newton is ridiculous. Imagine if he played with like Dan Orlovsky or played with or Sean Hill or one of these backup terrible quarterbacks, or had to play with Ryan Fitzpatrick, who isn't terrible, but still a worse quarterback than Cam Newton. You can only imagine the complaints that be coming out of him. So I think that was just foolish for him to say that. And, guys like that just say dumb stuff sometimes. I kind of wish he came out and said, you know what, I apologize and manned up to Cam's face, but you could see he wasn't the bigger man in that scenario.
John Gruden back on the sidelines coaching the Raiders again. Was it more weird or exciting seeing him coaching Oakland again?
I think it's a mix of both. I think their fans are definitely excited. It's weird you're just thinking of him in the booth every Monday night, not being there. It's going to be weird and getting used to that. But, I mean, who doesn't love John Gruden, the coach? I mean, from his facial, he's going to have so many memes and gifs of facial expressions and things he does on the sidelines. It's going to be a social media dream every time he's out there every week. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward. I think the Raiders kind of is a 1 year, one of those rough years that just happens and you have injuries and all this stuff happens. I think they're good enough to be a playoff team and turn this thing around. I think Gruden can get them to a 9 or 10 win team and maybe make the playoffs this year. So I think he's going to be a big part of that. I think he's the right hire, and he better heck be the right hire for the money that they're paying him. I mean, he's getting paid more than most of those players on the damn team. So if he doesn't work out, it's going to be a rough transition to Las Vegas. But, I mean, who's better to transition to Las Vegas to than John Gruden on the sideline?
Jake Brown joining us here in the cheap seats, WFAN.com writer as well as SiriusXM NFL producer. You mentioned those players on the team for John Gruden, and one of those guys who's yet to show up is Khalil Mack. Between him and Aaron Donald, which one of these holdouts do you think ends quickest?
that's a $64,000 question. I'll say Aaron Donald, because I think he's got to realize that team is stacked, and with him could be a real contender. I mean, you could look at them as maybe those one-and-done kind of teams. Maybe they regress this year, or you could look at them as, hey, we're young, Goff is developed, we got Gurley, we got all these guys that he's going to realize, hey, this is a chance to be part of something special. I really hate guys holding out because you're losing so much money by holding out each day. And I know a lot of these teams do waive these penalties, and from whatever it is, 50,000 a day or whatever the number is.
Right.
A lot of the teams do waive it. But what's the point? Just play, and you can work out the contract on the side. Let your agent take care of that. Be on the field. You're more of a distraction when you're off the field. And the real reason behind it that no one wants to say, that we know is the clear-cut reason, these guys have no interest, especially these guys with the big egos who are good, and you know what, who could live up to that. They have no interest in playing August and playing in practice and practicing in these 90. I don't have interest in walking to the damn grocery store in this weather. Imagine doing these workouts in this weather. These guys have no interest. They want to suit up for week one. This is kind of an excuse not to practice. It's a pricey excuse, but one that if they do get a deal done, they'll likely get those penalties waived. But that's what this is all about. It's not wanting to play with these fringe roster guys and not wanting to practice on 90-degree temperatures, because a lot of these guys don't want to practice. It's the Allen Iverson thing. What are we talking about? Practice. A lot of them don't want to because they don't feel the need to. They want to be there week one when it matters. So that's the big reason I think it is for me.
Which team do you think will be the biggest surprise in the NFL this year? Once we get finished with the preseason, who will be the team that maybe surprises us the most in the NFL?
I don't know if it'll be a surprise. I think people do expect them to turn around, but I really do think the Giants are going to turn the corner this year and then make up for that awful year they had last year. I think they could really be a playoff team, potentially a Super Bowl contender, because I think they have the real deal in the backfield. They improved their offensive line. You got Ingram for a full season. You saw what you had out of him. You have Beckham back, Shepard. So I think the Giants really could turn it around. And another team that I don't think people are surprised by because they're excited about is the Browns. I think especially if the Browns add Dez Bryant, they can go from a winless team to maybe a 500 team if all goes right, which would be a huge turnaround. Not a playoff team. They're not that good yet. But I think the Browns and Giants are two teams that were top three teams that could, or bottom three teams, top three teams in the draft that could turn into either near playoff team or potentially playoffs on the Giants for the Giants' sake. Browns, if they made the playoffs, I'd honestly be shocked because I think that would take a huge turnaround. But don't be surprised if they win 7 or 8 games.
And Jake, you brought up Odell. Are you surprised the Giants haven't given him a new contract yet?
No, because I think, to me, again, it doesn't make sense. Well, I'm happy he didn't hold out. I shouldn't say I was going to refer to holding out. I'm glad he's playing because he should be, first off. Second off, the guy didn't play most of last season. I could totally understand why the Giants would want to extend a guy coming off a big injury, coming off all these storylines in the offseason. Who knows what's true and what's not, what's accusation, what's not. But there's a lot of risk with Odell Beckham, from the off-the-field stuff to the injuries. And I think you want to see him play first before you get this done. If you don't get it done before training camp, you know what? You get it done after the season. If he goes out and balls out, he's going to get the money he wants from the Giants. If not the Giants, another team. The Giants, at that point, when they see him ball out again, are going to say, you know what, let's give him his $16, $18 million a year and get this thing done. I don't think you need to get this thing done in August. And even if he does get hurt this year, there's going to be a ton of teams that are going to want him. He's an all-world talent. So I just think he needs to play and not worry about that contract.
Last thing here for you, Jake. We started off talking about a meaningless preseason, but which Week 2 preseason game are you most excited about? Eagles, Patriots, or Steelers, Packers?
Oh, I guess I'll say Eagles, Patriots, because, I mean, who doesn't love a good Super Bowl rematch? And I think both teams have some question marks. You know, with Edelman out the first 4 games, how will the Patriots hold up? Will the Eagles have a Super Bowl hangover? And will Carson Wentz be the Week 1 quarterback? That's the big question. I think he's ready, and I think he's healthy enough. The question is, will the doctors let him go? If not, you're lucky you still have a Super Bowl champion in Nick Foles to lead the way. But I think both teams have some question marks to work out injury-wise and depth chart-wise, that I think that's going to be a matchup to watch out for.
He's Jake Brown, WFAN writer, as well as SiriusXM NFL producer. Jake, we appreciate the time. Thank you, pal.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
as Jake Brown. We're back in a bit here. We'll recap a little bit what he said. John and I will give you our predictions as well. Maybe not predictions, but we'll give you our thoughts on what Jake had to say, as well as our thoughts on the poll question, which, by the way, you go to the Facebook page, Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Vote on that. Which sport has the most meaningless preseason? Is it Major League Baseball spring training, or is it what we're in right now, preseason in the NFL? Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Cheap Seats presented by Squadcast.fm on the Public House Media Network.
This is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories here on Public House Media. Thank you for tuning into the following broadcast here on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Cinema Stories, where we talk about movie and TV news and reviews, and maybe, just maybe, we'll learn a little something about ourselves. If not, then maybe I made you laugh a couple of times. I don't know. New episodes air bi-weekly on Tuesdays. Thanks again for checking out the totally spectacular following broadcast here on Public House Media.
How's it going, everybody? This is Keith.
And Katie, hosts of Coffee with Keith and Katie here on Public House Media.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. When you're done here, I hope you'll check out our show, Coffee with Keith and Katie,
where we talk about our lives and relationship over a cup of coffee.
A new episode airs on Facebook Live every Monday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Coffee with Keith and Katie.
Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Back inside the Cheap Seats on the Public House Media Network, presented by Squadcast.fm. Jon Lauder, Christian Heimall with you on this Monday, August 13th, 2018. A reminder to go to the Cheap Seats by Public House Media Facebook page, vote on the poll question, more meaningless preseason, NFL or Major League Baseball. To me, it's the NFL. They're both pretty pointless, though. So make sure you go check that out. Big thanks again to Jake Brown for joining the program, giving us some interesting nuggets on the NFL. But yeah, I mean, it's hard because people get so excited about the preseason, Christian, but at the end of the day, it makes absolutely no difference. I remember somebody a couple of days ago tweeted that the year the Detroit Lions went 0-16, they were 4-0 in the preseason.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
So, you know, it just doesn't matter. But, you know, you also have to understand that, you know, fans whose teams have been bad for a while or who have not had the star quarterback, you know, they kind of want to dream a little bit.
Yeah,
so I can
it's something to get
understand that
excited
as well.
about. I mean, I get it. You know, Giants fans, we get excited about, you know, Saquon Barkley. We get excited about, you know, when Odell takes the field. Patriots fans are going to be interested to see how this offense works without, you know, Edelman for the suspension, even though they're used to it with him being injured. You know, so Browns are going to be excited to see Tyrod Taylor and Baker Mayfield and what this new offense is. So I get it. I understand it. You know, Jets fans are, you know, losing their minds over the return of Joe Namath. But it's I have a hard time deciding on this poll question, John, because you know I love baseball. You know I do.
Oh, I do.
And I am one of those guys who sits and watches spring training. More so because it's just baseball and I love watching the sport. But spring training, like I'd be completely fine if it didn't exist. I feel like the NFL preseason is talked about because of holdouts. Like, we're not talking about, you know, Jake said it. You know, these guys, you know, Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack, they don't believe they need to be there during preseason. They just want to show up week one and play. So that's part. He feels that's part of the reason they hold out, which I understand that. You don't see that in baseball. Baseball, you got to get back into a rhythm, and I understand that. But we don't need split squad games. We don't need. You know, I could care less. Shohei Ohtani had a 28 ERA, and through the first half of the season, this guy was a possible Cy Young candidate. So, I mean, it really means nothing either way, but it was just, I don't know, like, and it bugs me, too, with spring training, because everyone's like, oh, you got to go to spring training. You got to go to spring training game. It's on a baseball fan's bucket list. Why? Because the guy who I want to see is going to get one at-bat maybe, and then I'm not going to see him again. I got to sit there in the friggin' Florida heat for no reason and humidity for 4 hours just to see guys who were never going to make the squad.
Yeah, it's dumb. It makes absolutely no sense.
So, I mean, I don't know where I really don't know where I lie on that one. I'm kind of on the fence.
All right, fair enough.
They're both terrible, so.
So, Sam Darnold, Hall of Famer, right? Gotta be.
Clearly, yes. Clearly, Sam Darnold, Hall of Famer. That's the best part. Look, I mean, again, I'm going to be 1,000% honest. I did not watch. The most I watched of the most I watched of NFL preseason, week 1, was the video somebody else shot of Cam Newton and Kelvin Benjamin. That's the most I saw of preseason, week 1.
Solid video, too.
Yeah, well, I shouldn't say that. I also saw the targeting hit in the Hall of Fame game that wasn't really a targeting hit. I saw that highlight, and that's about it. So, look, Baker Mayfield threw 2 touchdowns against a Giants defense that is never going to see the actual field. So pump the brakes, even though I love Baker, and I've been on the Baker Mayfield train for 2.5 years now. Pump the brakes. The Jets need to start Teddy Bridgewater. If not, Josh McCown. Sam Darnold is not going to be your week 1 starter. Figure it out. You'll be fine. But
I don't know about that. Darnold's been taking the first team reps now. I think he is going to be the starter.
And that's what you drafted him at number 3 for, isn't it? You drafted him at number 3 to be that guy. You didn't.
Yeah. I mean, if he's ready, why not start him?
I don't disagree. It's one of those. I just can't judge it. I can't judge it when you're not facing the highest level competition with the highest level competition. You're not like Eli Manning's not out there with Odell Beckham right now.
True.
Mean, I will say this: the one where when I do watch, because I always do watch the third preseason game because that's the one where the starters play the most. Where I watch is honestly the offense and defensive line, because if a rookie offensive lineman is having trouble off the ball, having trouble reading defenses, then you're going to have trouble. So Will Hernandez for the Giants, he's going to be an interesting one to look at. How does that offensive line hold up with Nate Solder and the chemistry that they're trying to form there? So those are the things that I would look forward to when, truth be told, honestly, it doesn't really bother me that much. I could not really care less.
Okay. Fair enough.
So I don't know about you, but it's just one of those things that's just and I did think it was interesting, again, what Jake said with regards to Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack in terms of their holdouts, because they feel like they don't need to be there during preseason. It's just
they don't.
I don't disagree with that. I just find it interesting that someone, I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say that, like that's why they're holding out, is because, yes, they want a new contract, but also because they just don't want to be out there in pads, every day for 10 days in the sweltering summer heat. They just want to show up and play week 1.
Right.
So that's a little interesting to hear Jake say that.
That's true.
But I mean, other than that, I mean, there's really nothing crazy going on. It was kind of funny to hear him respond. Which game are you more intrigued by this week? Even though we say the preseason is meaningless, but you got Eagles Patriots in a rematch, and you got Steelers Packers, which are probably the two big ones coming up on Thursday night. So I don't know. I could care less. I mean, I'm not going to watch, but I'm sure you will check in on your Packers to see how they do against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is going to play like a second,
right?
Because you don't want him getting hurt again. But sure, I mean, I'll check it out. But no, I mean, who cares about any of this? The one thing, though, that was interesting to me, obviously, we talked to Jake about Odell. He didn't play in this preseason game. I don't know if he'll play at all at the preseason. What are the Giants doing here? Okay, clearly, you're playing for right now. You did not draft Darnold, which I still think is a mistake. You drafted Saquon Barkley. You're relying on Eli, who's like 185 years old. How have you not signed Odell? What are you doing? Are you signing him or not? What are they doing?
Like I told you, and like Jake said, I think they're waiting to see what happens during the season. I think they're waiting to see exactly how he pans out when he's healthy with everything else there. And I don't think they want to give him that kind of money up front without seeing what he's done. He's been you and I have talked about this. He's been a tremendous soldier. He's been a model New York Giant since the issue overseas with the Snapchat video. He's been great. But when you actually see him at full speed, highlights from practice are great. But when he takes that first hit across the middle, when he has to make that first juke, in the open field, how does that ankle hold up? I will not be surprised at all if by week 5, week 6, he's got a new contract. But I can't fault the Giants for not giving him one right now.
I'm sorry. If I'm Odell, I'm not stepping on that field without a new deal. I'm not doing it.
Then who's going to give you one? You haven't played in over a year. Nobody's going to like that's a bad move for him.
I know, but his first 3 years were like the best in the history of NFL, in the history of football.
They were
for a wide receiver.
You're 100% right, and but here's the thing.
And why would he want to risk injury without a new contract?
I don't disagree with that.
Now, what you said, I would agree with if he had one season under his belt. But he has proven himself over multiple years to be the most dynamic wide receiver in football.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe you like Antonio Brown better or Julio Jones, that's fine. But the most dynamic receiver in the NFL is Odell Beckham Jr. And he has proven it over multiple years. Okay? And the way he plays, he's susceptible to injury. And I get why the Giants would be hesitant to give him a deal. But if I'm Odell, I am not risking another injury without a contract. I'm just not doing it, period.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you there. But, I mean, I think if he wasn't a skill player, I think he'd already have a contract. I think if he was a quarterback, he'd have a contract. But
yeah, that's
because
true.
It's a skill position, I don't think GMs are going to be as gung-ho about going after somebody, about doing that. So, but again, I would not be surprised at all if midway through the season or even the first 4 games Odell's got a new contract under his belt. It wouldn't surprise me at all because I think you're 100% right. I think if he goes and like Jake said, if he balls out in the first 3 games, the Giants would be stupid not to back up the Brinks truck. They would be stupid
makes sense. That's true.
So we'll see what happens. All right, as we do every Monday here, we'll wrap up shop with our Mojo Monday, whether it's good, whether it's bad. Somebody's got Mojo. John, I'm going to start here because this was hilarious to me. This was really, really funny.
Now, quick before you say what you're going to say, is this bad Mojo or good Mojo because you're a Red Sox fan?
I can't tell. I can't tell. You know
hard.
what? It's probably going to be bad Mojo just because
that's good because I have good Mojo. So
yeah, it has never been this bad in the history. Well, not the history of baseball, but so how about this? So the other day, on Friday night, the Red Sox were trailing 8-3 to the Baltimore Orioles in the 6th inning. The Red Sox came back and eventually won the game 19-12. Now, it's bad enough blowing a 5-run lead at home, whatever, but the Red Sox are the best team in baseball. What made it worse, the Orioles, because of that loss, were mathematically eliminated from the American League East. After that game, John, they fell 46.5 games behind the Red Sox with 46 games left to play. According to Stats by Stats, it's the most games a team has had remaining on its season upon elimination during the divisional era, meaning that in the last 50 years, no team has ever been eliminated from the division that early. Ever. You have to go back to 1962. August 10th, 1962, when the New York Mets were eliminated from the playoffs. And prior to that, August 10th, 1932, when the Red Sox were eliminated. Not even an Orioles team that went 0-21 to start the 1988 season was eliminated sooner than that. Unbelievable.
It's bad.
And wait, it gets better. It gets so much better. This is great. The Orioles, in that loss, that 19-12 loss on Friday, it was their 3rd highest run total of the year. And they still lost by 7. Losing that big while scoring that many runs hasn't happened in baseball in almost 20 years. The last time it happened, when the Cubs lost 19-12 to the Brewers on July 1st, 1999.
Jesus. It's crazy.
Oh, my goodness. Like, how... And I finally started seeing it over the weekend. How does Buck Showalter still have his job?
No, he has to be fired.
But here's the thing. Is this on Buck Showalter, or is this on the front office who gave everything away?
No, but he, the fans need someone on a platter, and it's going to be him.
They need Buck Showalter fired, and you know what? There's a guy who just had a job down the Beltway who probably would still be good and should be managing still, and that's Dusty Baker.
Yeah.
But who knows? We'll see what happens with the Orioles, but oh my God, that is hilariously bad mojo.
All right, well, I've got some good mojo, and I'm keeping it with baseball.
I like it.
This past weekend, David Wright was 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts in 5 innings for Class A St. Lucie. in their 4-1 loss to Clearwater, but he got on the field, Christian, and as you and I both know, it's been a long time for him. He hasn't played for the Mets in over 2 years, since May 27th, 2016. He's been limited to just 75 regular season games since 2015. Look, regardless of how you feel about the Mets, David Wright is one of the good guys in baseball.
Yeah.
He was an all-time Met before these injuries. I'm not saying he was going to be a Hall of Famer, but he certainly was on track to being the best Met of all time. You look at his numbers, a 296 batting average, almost 250 home runs, almost 1,000 runs batted in. Was 200 hits away from 2,000. So a really, really good player for the Mets, and just heartbreaking to see what's happened to him in his career. He's under contract for 2 more years at about $27 million. And look, he's getting his money. So you couldn't blame him if he just packed it in and said, I'm going to Bobby Boney it and just get out of here.
Exactly.
But good for him. He said his goal is still to make it back to the team by this season. If not this season, then next year. It's great to see him fighting this hard. Just proves, what kind of man he is. Forget what kind of baseball player he is, but good mojo to David Wright. I hope he can come back and be productive. And even if he's never productive again, he's going to be remembered as an all-time Met, especially for how hard he's tried to fight to come back, especially considering this team is not worth playing for. So, give him a lot of credit for continuing to try to come back to a team that really doesn't even deserve him at this point.
Dude, the people in Binghamton must be losing their minds. They could get David Wright and then a healthy Tim Tebow. They're going to sell out every single
Lord.
day. Binghamton's going to be losing their mind. But you're absolutely right. You said one of the good guys in baseball. So hopefully we can have David back playing in the major leagues. I know a lot of Mets fans desperately want to see something good happen for them. So that would be nice. As always, we appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Don't forget to head to our Facebook page, Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Vote on the poll question. More meaningless preseason, NFL or Major League Baseball? John says NFL. So does Jake. I'm a little on the fence. I could go either way here. But
they're both meaningless at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, yes. But you can always check us out on Facebook as well, Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Like we mentioned, go to Twitter, find us. John is at JON_LAUDER. You could find me at Chris Heimall, CHRISHEIMALL. Don't forget to go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, all those fun places where you get your podcasts, and subscribe, rate, review, share us with your friends, or head over to thephmedia.com. Get yourself some awesome Cheap Seats gear. And don't forget, we are every single show, every single week, presented by Squadcast.fm. For John, I'm Christian. Big thanks to Jake Brown at WFAN and SiriusXM for joining us here on the show. We will see you next week, all the way up here in the Cheap Seats, presented by Squadcast.fm on the Public House Media Network.